Hi, I'm Kitty Horlick. I am a journalist and an amateur crypto trader, and I am here today to interview Ricardo, Jeremy, and Andrew about the Cardano Foundation and Scantrust track and trace collaboration. And I will let them all introduce themselves.
So I will take a start. My name is Ricardo Garcia, and I am head of partnerships and blockchain at Scantrust. I'm glad to be here to discuss how we increase supply chain traceability, authenticity, and consumer engagement in the wine industry.
I'm Jeremy Furster. I'm head of partnerships and executive officer at Cardano Foundation. And the in this project with Scantrust and Baia's Wine is very special as it was the first third party to integrate with Cardano and also the first company to use transaction metadata on Cardano for supply chain traceability.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Thornhill. I am an American businessman living and working in the country of Georgia. I am fortunate to be the Cardano ambassador to the country of Georgia. I'm also a blockchain lecturer. I work with IT companies, and I am also an advisor to Bias One.
So, thank you so much for inviting me to come and chat to you about this extremely exciting track and trace system developed by the Cardano Foundation and Scantrust. So, just for our viewers, this technology connects metadata on the Cardano blockchain to Scantrust secure QR codes, which can then be affixed to products and not only provide authentication for the consumer, but also complete supply chain transparency. So there's already been a highly successful proof of concept put into place at Baia's Wine, an artisanal multi-award-winning winery. So, Jeremy, as the project manager at the Cardano Foundation, could you explain a little bit about why you selected Baia's Wine for this project and what the users get in practice?
Thank you, Kitty. So we selected Baia's Wine for this project because we wanted to really demonstrate for a supply chain solution using blockchain. Some of the major values is that it is a low cost solution for transparency. Baia's Wine is some people would call them a micro vineyard in some ways because it's a very small family team. And we really wanted to highlight that you didn't have to be a big organization if you were looking to integrate with blockchain to add a value to your business.
Fantastic. So, what is it that you feel the consumer gains from the product and from being able to access this technology?
I think this is a good question for both myself and Ricardo. But if I kind of add first my opinion on this, is that when we're looking at supply chain traceability, there's a whole element here of ensuring that the product is authentic. So the number one benefit that I see for consumers is that they have this single point of reference, which can prove without any doubt that the product they hold in their hand is in fact the real bottle of Bias wine.
Yeah, so I would add to that, like the key item that consumers can get out of that is trust into the product. And I would dissect it into three parts. First, they can verify with their smartphone that the product is authentic. So that's trust level number one, the product you bought is real. Trust level number two is they can see the details on the provenance, and they can indeed see that this was the biologically sourced wine from Baia's Wine, and they understand why they pay a premium for this wine. And the third level is they even have the ability to independently verify that this data that they see has actually not been manipulated thanks to the use of the Cardano public network.
Wow. So, how does it work for the consumer? They scan the code and they're taken to a landing page, and this information is presented?
Correct. So there's two layers here. So we have to distinguish between the verification of the code and the accessing of the product history. So to verify the code, you can use the Scantrust app and you scan the code and it tells you, yes, it is authentic. If you just want to access the information, you can scan the code and it redirects you to a mobile landing page with all the information.
And why was this so important for the wine industry? Andrew, had there been issues with authentication of wine in the past?
Yes, there actually is a large number of problems with counterfeit wine. And I think that Cardano and Scantrust, one of the reasons why they picked Georgia was because they have these unique appellations that are create these really interesting varietals and blends of wine, but the country itself doesn't really have resources to combat the fraudulent nature of the wine. Yeah, right when we started this project with Baia's, and I was fortunate to be one of the implementers inside the country of Georgia for this. But right when we started the project, actually a fake Baia's wine popped up. I mean, just completely coincidentally, and we were able to get in front of that issue kind of before this product came out. But clearly, this is a big deal.
It's amazing to hear that it's already had such direct value to the brand. So I discovered today that over 3% of global trade is counterfeit. And clearly the track and trace solution has been very effective for buyers. Do you think it is robust and scalable enough to tackle fraud on a wide scale and bring authenticity to multiple industries?
So I can maybe jump in here from a technology point of view. So essentially there's two main building blocks to the solution. There's the usage of the Cardano network, and then there's the usage of the Scantrust platform. And both are designed to scale. So one of the main benefits of the Cardano network is that it's very fast and it's scalable, much more scalable than other public networks. And the Scantrust solution itself was designed to be able to cover millions or billions of products. So both technological components are by design developed to be able to support large-scale implementations.
So now that you have a proof of concept, are there plans to roll this out further and provide these QR codes for more products and more businesses?
Definitely. I mean, on the one hand, the wine industry as such is a really big industry with a lot of potential to apply that. But also beyond that, if we look into the broader food and beverage and also cosmetics or even fashion industry, anything that has a brand and is exported globally, also on the industrial goods side, such as spare parts or even motor oil, have the potential to benefit from such a solution.
It's extremely exciting. Are there other aspects of Cardano's network which made it particularly apt for this kind of project? I know, as Ricardo said, it's high speed and it's cheap, but I'm particularly intrigued to know whether or not it's, how highly organized Cardano is as a blockchain that allowed it to form a partnership with a company like Scantrust.
So one of the reasons why we were interested in forming a partnership with Scantrust was to actually test how useful Cardano is for supply chain tracking. And what we kind of determined is first doing an industry review of trade tech solutions and how blockchains have traditionally been used. So while the main value has usually been with a blockchain, you have a very secure record of this supply chain data. So we've captured it, we've wrote it down, and now it's publicly available for everyone to see that on April 1st, this is the data of the supply chain. But you said a very key word, which is robust. And we look about how do we continuously add value with using Cardano, which is set up as a third generation blockchain. So we know we have a lot more advanced functionality. And the main functionality that we have is the fact of how much data we can cheaply store within one transaction. So one of the things that we did quite differently here was we wanted to bring a lot more information that people can easily understand to go with this supply chain data record. And there are basically four components here. One is having a built-in digital ID feature. So digital identity. Who is involved in this transaction? Normally, blockchains are great for transparency, but they're very bad for showing the names of people or authenticity or attribution information. So with digital identity, we're able to confirm that this information is collected by Scantrust, and this information is viewed by Baia's Wine. So that's a good point for one, because when we have them actually sign the data and include a digital signature in the transaction itself, it is showing that this has been authenticated by themselves. So what if you wanted to fake a transaction on a blockchain and take a fake QR code and put it on another wine bottle? So having those digital signatures is an element that is very difficult to fake. The other thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to change the value from having a secure record, for having that be the use of a blockchain, to becoming a digital audit platform. So with Cardano, what we're able to do is to have anyone verify that data is still accurate. So we created this thing known as an open data policy. So the data is actually being stored on Baia's Wine's website, and people are able to basically replicate this data and see that data is still the same today, which will be September 25th and the 26th when this segment airs. So from April 1st to the end of September, nobody has changed this data. And that's important for overall time management, because when you think about supply chain information, counterfeit goods is not the only problems that companies face. Another problem to face is, do you trust the data that's given to you by the company? So by doing that, we no longer have to rely on the honesty of Scantrust. We no longer have to rely on the honesty of Baia's Wine. If they try to change their information for either purpose, we already have this verified record of information, which if you were to change it, everyone would know that there was this change and that there was some problem.
Wow, so it's quite a shift in the way that centralized companies are able to distribute their data.
Absolutely. And data distribution, I think, is a key value of what blockchains are really used for. A lot of people think that a blockchain is just a database, but that's actually not true, because if you're just storing data on a blockchain, it could become very costly. But what you really want to do is have that ability to share information of data and have a verification that this data is authentic. And secondly, the fact that with Cardano, when we're making this metadata record, usually metadata is just data about data. And it's just in text file only. So if you're putting information out as a text file, if you're looking to do any sort of automated verification systems, like let's take that data hash and let's replicate the supply chain data that's on the blockchain, or let's check that digital signature, it becomes very complicated at scale to do those manual replication processes. But on Cardano, because we use a data standard known as JSON, that's a global industry standard for how you can share data and we have machine-to-machine communication, so these processes can be automated and be visible to a consumer at ease. So that is another groundbreaking innovation that Cardano has been able to provide for the supply chain track and trace industry.
So in establishing these new industry standards, what exactly were Cardano trying to hit and achieve and ensure would carry forward and be replicated in future projects?
I would say that at first that wasn't really our intention. Our intention was to show the best that Cardano can be. And it was only by working with Baia's Wine and working with Scantrust, where Scantrust is a provider of supply chain traceability tools, that we were able to gain these insights and really understand, real problems that do exist within the industry. And from this whole process is what kind of enabled us to know that this is the next step. And it's not alone with just Scantrust. So as we participate in other trade organizations like that's established by World Economic Forum, we kind of see where everyone else is generally for the use of blockchains. And they're still considering mainly the ability to just have a secure record and nothing else, because you didn't have the capability of doing more. So our next step for this is kind of normalizing blockchain infrastructure and making it just an extension of a value chain, and providing the overall viewpoint of supply chain activity. And with the fact that you can do this at very low cost, means that it is accessible for millions of companies at any size.
I'd like to step in real quick because I really think that Cardano and Scantrust kind of knocked this project out of the park. This was, I think, a fantastic project, not only in demonstrating the value of metadata, but also in how Scantrust can utilize blockchain to secure data slightly differently. But this project also was a great fit for Baia's Wine in that it allowed a female-led winery to experiment with some very, very new, actually completely cutting-edge technology. Never before, of course, has metadata been used as part of the track and trace program. There aren't any other programs like this that are happening in Georgia, and this, because of the popularity of Cardano and the popularity of Scantrust, clients were actually calling Baia's winery and asking where they can get the wine, how they can participate. Through this project, we've opened up additional markets. Baia's is a company that sells internationally, but they're not a global company. And so we've been able to open up different country markets around the world as a result of this project. But also, the wine business is extremely convoluted. The international wine trade business is very difficult. It's filled with tons of paperwork and rules and regulations, and it's very many people will walk into, not all, but many people walk into a wine shop and kind of look at a bottle and not really be sure, and they'll look at the price and they'll maybe ask a friend or try to look it up online. And this product allows the consumer to very quickly connect with the producer in a way that really the entire industry is trying to prevent. This is being able to crack open the door on this industry even by a little bit, shows that this innovation can happen and be very successful, but it also shows that Scantrust and Cardano working together can really maybe start to peel away some of these bureaucratic layers of what it takes to produce wine, and then of course to authenticate that entire process. It's really an incredible product.
Do you think that long term it's going to shift the way that wineries produce and distribute their wine?
I can speak on behalf of some Georgian wineries that absolutely yes. I think Ricardo might have better insight on, more international companies, but this has been a huge success for Baya's Wine, and especially during COVID, when there's been a lot less trade fairs and opportunities for people to go and meet the producers individually, one on one. Now they're able to use their smartphone and just kind of have a connect. They can see some videos and pictures, and they really, through the map they can see exactly where the wine was made. Um, yes, I think that over time, especially, any company is one fraudulent hiccup away from needing this product. And so, yeah, I think that wineries around the world are faced with a lot of difficult choices and situations with bad actors, and a product like this really kind of eliminates that. So, yeah, I definitely see this as the future of not just in winemaking, but production and consumption in general.
Yeah, I think Andrew nailed the description. So we as a technology provider saw a huge trend with COVID of a boost in contactless communication. So brands don't really have the chance to meet their consumers anymore directly at the point of sale or at fairs or at special events. So they're looking for alternative ways to get in touch with them if they order products online, for example. And a QR code on a product is one of the greatest ways to do that, because you can target the consumer at the moment when he or she holds the product in his or her hand. So we have seen a big uptake of QR codes on products thanks to COVID and thanks to the boost of contactless communication. And so I would second that this doesn't only hold up for the Georgian wine industry, but generally to the beverage and also the food and broader consumer goods space globally.
Yeah, as Andrew mentioned, the scanning the QR code brings up all those photos and the stories of not just how the wine was made, but the exact dates that the grapes were harvested and when they were crushed and when they were fermented and when they were bottled. And it really struck me that food in particular is an area where consumers really, really really want to understand that the products are good and that they're organic and how they've been made. So it really struck me that it creates a sense of intimacy between the consumer and the product, which is very much in demand. But I'm intrigued, Ricardo, this is such a stunning example of how blockchain can be fused with other technologies. Do you see more collaborations with blockchain happening in your industry? And how do you see the balance and the partnership between centralized data in companies such as your own and then decentralized data in blockchains such as Cardano?
Sure. So we work very deeply in the supply chain industry, and blockchain has been put forward as one of the most groundbreaking technology in this space. So it's almost impossible not to deal with blockchain when you work in the supply chain space. These days, it comes up in many conversations all the time. So I think for any provider in that industry, it's really important to position yourself and to develop partnerships with blockchain companies in order to be able to offer combined solutions. And I think that's something that we already realized in 2017, like already 4 or even 5 years ago, and started actively moving into that space and building these partnerships. And with regards to the question of how to position centralized services with decentralized services, I think for any supply chain solution, there will always be bits and pieces that will be centralized, whether it's a certification company that checks that certain events have happened and then pushes it to a blockchain, or whether it's like an authentication service that allows you to verify via image recognition that a QR code is real. So there will always be these parts, but the benefit that blockchain provides is that there is a common source of data that is verified and immutable that connects all these different parts together. So these small centralized components are essentially tools that you append to the blockchain to increase its value and its usability.
The other thing I'd like to add on that point is that, the blockchain is a lot like the internet or like a highway in that it is somewhat considered like a public good. So all of these supply chain companies that are looking to have more advanced traceability solutions or transparency solutions, they could go one route by trying to build all these applications themselves in-house, or they're able to cooperate on a global platform such as Cardano that reduces that cost of entry. And the more innovations that get thought about, or the more tools that gets developed to make it easier to deploy a blockchain solution, that becomes beneficial for everyone involved. And I think that's kind of one of the real keys here about why we're talking about innovations of supply chain tracking when using a blockchain, because it is an open source technology that is open for everyone to contribute to.
Wow. So beyond supply chains, where do you see this kind of technology being directly impactful?
For myself, I would again like to highlight, how we have brought in a digital identity solution. And if you gave that to everyone in the supply chain space, that would be great. But where do you need data to be verified? Data can be verified for all types of documentation, any type of multimedia file. So, we're looking at, the space for NFTs. Wherever you want to have an additional layer of authenticity, being provided is where it's great to have a secure record of data. If you think about it in general, if you think about business disruption cost during a transaction event. So buying a bottle of wine is a transaction. And what we're really showing here is proving that this wine is authentic. And that is eliminating a concern from a buyer. If that concern still existed, then they'd probably put that bottle down. So there's a lot of industries where this type of having additional layers of trust is kind of like a built-in insurance policy. And where that's the exciting part for me, because just for a very small additional cost to that transaction, a blockchain-powered, secure but verifiable record will ensure that you don't have these type of disruptions, which, if you do, would normally cost you a lot more than, say, 50 cents US dollars or 0.2 ADA.
Yeah, and to pick up on that, maybe I think Jeremy made two good points for two interesting use cases for which the technology that we have jointly developed can actually be applied almost one-to-one. The first one is document security. So a document works very similar like a good in a supply chain. It has a life cycle, it gets generated, and it needs to be verified that it's authentic. So we see a trend in the market that blockchain combined with a secure code like ours is used for that, where you first digitally generate a document, certificate, for example. That certificate then gets anchored in a blockchain with a timestamp on when it was generated. And then once it's printed, you apply a secure code on it to also protect the physical layer. So at any moment in time, you can actually verify its authenticity, and you can also check when the document was generated and make sure that it's authentic. And the other emerging use case that we see that Jeremy also mentioned are NFTs. So we see an increasing trend that NFTs are also used for physical goods. For example, a sneaker that has an NFT that is a piece of digital art, or a bottle of premium cognac or alcohol that has a corresponding NFT that you can trade on a secondary market. And there it's also critical to combine these two things of having physical security that is authenticatable and digital security via an immutable NFT that lives in a blockchain.
I'd like to add, though, also that it's not just track and trace for this technology, even now with Baias. We've positioned the wines at different stores globally, such as in England and I think in Canada and Germany, in which the wine bar or the wine shop owners are aware of these stickers. But there's not like a neon sign pointing at the sticker saying, hey, scan me. And so we're hearing stories of people that are kind of discovering this on their own, which is kind of magical in a way. And then once they, click, scan it and click on the website, and it pops up, and like it's a whole another world almost of this bottle right in front of them. These bottles are numbered, right? So there's a limit to them. People that maybe don't know about Cardano or about Scantrust will experience learning about both of those companies, and it's a real. It's not a gimmick in any way, but it's market magic in a way, where people can just really kind of discover something, and then we're seeing that people are scanning the bottles more than once. Of course, they want to show their friends, hey, look at this, it's incredible. Here's the story of this, and if they happen to take the bottle to a different location, each scan shows them an updated record. The video that we're going to be presenting at Cardano is going to be appended to that record, so that after the summit, when you scan this code near the bottom of that page, will be a link showing this entire video where people can see it again and experience it. So it's a dynamic record. That's a beautiful way to interact with the customer, and that's not something to be overlooked at all.
Well, that's certainly an incredibly stirring image of the consumer discovering this entire world to the wine that they never knew about. And thank you so much to all of you for explaining the intricacies of why this technology is so valuable and how the Cardano blockchain can continue to facilitate consumers and users around the world.
Thank you, Kitty, so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you.